40. This is the Voiceover Marketing Podcast, episode number 40. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Voiceover Marketing Podcast. My name is John Melly, and this is the podcast dedicated to teaching in-depth and advanced marketing strategies for people in the voiceover and audio production professions. My goal is to help you make more money by showing you ways to leverage your time, charge more for your talents, and allow you to spend more time doing the things you want to do in your life. Hey there, it's John. How are you? Thanks for spending some time with me today. I do appreciate it. Happy New Year! I hope you had a great holiday season. I hope your winter's going well. I'm having a great year so far. I am preparing some neat things for this podcast this year. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my plans for this year, but I want to tell you about the main part of our episode today is an interview that I recorded with the comedian Gallagher a while ago. And I had it in the can, so to speak, and never got around to editing it. But I decided, during the Christmas break, I thought, I've got this great episode and I have some great poems that he recorded with me in studio before we even did our interview. And I thought I would share one of those poems with you. Just a really, really creative guy. And we talk about his career and why he never wanted a television show, how he's kind of a contrarian and he thinks differently. And that's really what a lot of comedians do, is they have a different way of looking at the world and pointing those things out and laughing at them. And he's got a very creative mind. He has some controversial thoughts on whether or not people can make it in the voiceover world or acting in general. We talk about that toward the end of the interview, but he's a different creative thinker, and he's someone who has some health problems, which he talks about, and how that frames his thinking on how he lives his life and the types of projects that he takes on. He's quite candid about that. And after my interview with him, I share with you one of his more fun poems on the differences between the English and French languages, and how much of English is based on French and how many French words are in the English language. It's very, very clever and a lot of fun to listen to. So I put that at the end of my interview with Gallagher. We had a lot of fun. It was fun for me to meet him. An interesting man on a lot of levels. But he's a creative thinker. He's kind of in his own world, if you will. I don't think he'd be offended if he heard me say that. I think he would probably agree with it. But it was a fun experience for me to record with him. There's a picture of me with him in the studio, and that was fun. But I've got some plans for this January. It's January of 2016, and I'm taking most of next week off from the studio, basically to work on projects and plan out my year for 2016. I did it last year, and last year was kind of a maintenance and preparatory type activity to get me to a place where I kind of got myself organized. I'll admit that I'm going to need to do a little bit of that again this year, but I did a lot of planning last year, and that was based off a book I read a while back on essentialism, and I've talked about that book in several episodes of the Voiceover Marketing Podcast. I can't tell you which one. And it's about focusing on what's essential. What are you really good at? And eliminating everything else in your life that takes away from you excelling at those things that are essential to you. And you have to do a little searching and thinking about what those things are. So I'm doing that, and I'm looking forward to it. This past weekend, I'm going to gloat a little bit. My parents celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary, and I'm really proud of them. 50 years is a long time, And sure, it's like most marriages, it's had its ups and downs, its challenges and triumphs and everything. But this past weekend was a great weekend for the Melly family. And we all got together, my brothers and my sister and I. We all have a musical background. I have two brothers who have their doctorates in music. My sister is a music teacher, and my brother Paul is an accomplished musician. He's produced a couple of albums. If you like Christian and Catholic music, you can go find Paul Melly on iTunes and listen to some of his music. My brother Neil, who's got his doctorate, was in the U.S. Air Force Band of Liberty, but now he teaches privately and performs in the Boston area and teaches at a private school. Very, very talented man. And my brother Eric also has his doctorate in music, and he is a director at the University of Lafayette Ragin' Cajuns. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're in Louisiana, my brother Eric is the director of the Ragin' Cajun Band. And my sister, as I said, is a very, very accomplished musician as well, and she performs the oboe, but she also teaches in the public school systems, and but also performs in the Boston area. So you may have heard in previous episodes, I'm a drummer, and I went to the broadcast side of the music industry. At any rate, what we did was we performed a piece of music for my family, and it was the first time that I ever performed with all of my siblings. It was a really neat experience for me. And they've all performed together multiple times. But the neat thing is my nieces and nephews are all studying music as well, and they performed for my family, for my parents. We had a reception for them after a mass to celebrate their wedding. They renewed their wedding vows. And there were a lot of people there that I hadn't seen in a long time. And I'm gloating because I'm really proud of my family. They're all really, really, really talented, and they're all really neat people. It's fun. It can be a little chaotic when we're all together because it's a tribe, but I love them dearly. But the interesting thing, and I want to ask you as a voice talent or maybe even a radio person, if you get this question a lot, because I get it all the time when I meet people I haven't seen in a while. People always ask me, so are you still doing that radio thing? Are you still doing that voiceover stuff? And I always marvel at that question. I think they really want to ask me if I'm still gainfully employed. I can assure you, yes, it's been very good to me. I'm very fortunate. But I wonder if you're like in insurance or real estate or any other profession, if you're in law enforcement or whatever, do you think if you're at a cocktail party or a reception of some kind, there's a, so, Jim, you still selling insurance? Are you still a dentist? Are you still in law enforcement? Does that happen? Or do people just sort of assume that you're still going on? Unless you say, so what's new? Well, I'm doing a career change. Oh, I'm sure that happens. Maybe folks who are listening to this podcast who've come from a previous career like I did and saying, you know what, I'm going to do this voiceover thing, in quotes. They have that conversation. Yeah, well, I'm looking to make a change. I'm going to get into voiceover. Oh, well, I hear there's money in that, isn't there? Yeah, well, good for you. They have no concept. You and I know, but they don't know. My mom still doesn't know. She introduces me to people. She says, this is my oldest son, John. She doesn't really talk like this. I'm just doing this for, character's sake. This is my son, John. He's the one who does, the voices and the radio and the games and he's the one. Yeah. And I just kind of get this nodding smile like, what is she talking about? Oh, that's not nice. People don't get it, do they? Do I? Do you? Do you get what we do? No. It's pretty fun, though. I refer to myself as the ubiquitous unknown. I'm everywhere, but nobody knows who I am. At any rate, I don't know why I got on that, but it's an interesting question. I wonder, do you get that same question? Do people ask you, so, Jim, Sally, whomever, still doing that voice thing? I'm babbling. We have had, before we get to Gallagher, we have had, as of this recording, 37,611 downloads of all the various odd and sundry voiceover marketing podcast episodes. And I thank you. Thank you very much. And I continue to receive wonderful emails from people who have been listening to the podcast. Can't tell you how much that means to me for you to take the time. Everybody's busy, right? For those of you who have taken the time to write me a quick note telling me how much it means to you, how much you enjoy the podcasts and the guests that we get, it means an awful lot, because I spend a lot of time putting these episodes together, and you put it out there and you wonder. It's like, okay, I can see the number of downloads and that's encouraging, but you wonder, it's like, is this worth it? Is this reaching people? Are they getting it? And you are, and you're sharing it, and I thank you for that. This episode of the Voice Over Marketing Podcast is sponsored by the book Voice Over Legal by Robert Siglampaglia Jr., an attorney and a fellow voice actor. You've heard me talk about this book, this resource, on various episodes of the podcast. We even had Rob Siglampaglia on as a guest. And, you know, this is the cover of the book, Essential Information You Need to Successfully Manage Your Voiceover and Business Issues. It covers contracts, corporations, copyrights, and more. It's published by VoiceOver Extra. John Florian, heads that organization up, a very reputable website and resource for the voiceover community. This book is great. If you are in voiceover and you are treating your business as a business, as I say, voiceover is a fun business, but it's still a business. If you're at all serious, before you really get started, you want to look at this book. And I picked this book up before I interviewed Rob, and I'll tell you, within the first 3 days, I went to this book to look up something about music copyrights and intellectual property issues, and whether or not you could use a piece of music in a promotional announcement. And it's a wonderful resource. I have an affiliate link for it on the show notes for this episode 40. If you want to order this book, it's like, depending on the version you order, the online version, the hard copy version, it's like $19 or $25, short money, great investment. I do have an affiliate link. If you buy it through the link, you will get a discount, but you will also be supporting the podcast. We do receive an affiliate commission for every purchase made through this affiliate link. Can't say enough about the book. You got to buy it. So do that. This episode is sponsored by VoiceOver Legal Book. I think Rob is working on a new updated edition of this, but he's been so darn busy getting cast in all kinds of movies and commercials and private projects that I don't know if he's had a chance to update it yet. I'm going to reach out to him and find out if he has. So maybe we can get him back on the show to talk about some new developments in the industry. I know I've kind of babbled. I've bragged about my family. I've teased you about this interview with Gallagher. It's a very interesting interview. I must admit it. There are times when I ask a question and he gives me an answer, and you may be able to pick this up. I caught it while I was editing the content of the interview just for time. There are a couple of times where I don't really know where to go after he gives me this answer, because he kind of wanders off. But it's a really interesting interview. Listen to it with an ear toward how does this guy's mind work? How does he get ideas? And finally, when you listen to the poem after the interview, listen to his command of language and words and how he uses them. He's really, really smart. If you listen to it from that perspective, I think you get a lot out of it. Like I said, he's got some controversial thoughts about voice acting and whether or not people can be successful or not. I'm not sure I agree with everything that he said, because I think all skills can be learned and improved. I think talent is there too, but I think you can nurture that. So anyway, I'll be quiet now, and let's go listen to my interview with Gallagher.
All right.
So anyway,
hi everybody.
ladies and gentlemen listening to the podcast, my guest today is none other than Gallagher, the comedian. How are you?
I'm really impressed with myself. Yay! I'm glad I'm here.
This is such a treat. I found out you were in the building today because you were in the parking lot at 4 o'clock this morning, waiting to do an appearance for a radio show, a morning show here in CBS in Boston because you're performing in Boston.
Yeah.
And then that was around 6:30. I was in the car driving to my trainer. And then when I got out of my trainer, I turned on the radio, I heard, and then the first words were, this might be a little awkward, but Gallagher's still here. And you basically said, yeah, I got nothing to do. I got nowhere to go. And I thought, oh my gosh, maybe I could go meet him. And I met you this morning, and I asked you if you'd be willing to do an interview, and you came and asked me if you could share some poems that you've written, which are really, really creative. We just recorded a few of them, but thank you for spending some time with me today. As I was saying just before we turned the microphones on, when you were on TV when I was younger, it was appointment viewing. And you do a lot of props with your bits. The Sledge-O-Matic is something that everybody knows about. What are you working on now? Why don't you tell everybody what you're doing and then how you come up with your ideas?
One day, my son woke up and told me his dream about whales. And I wrote my poem about the whales. And sometimes I'll see something on TV. Just anything can inspire me. The other day I was reading, because I'm up here in New England, they're so concerned with birds, and there's a lot of bird watchers, and they even count them. And there was this long article in the paper about how many of this kind of bird there was, and 100 and only 35 of this other. And I thought, my God, that's a lot of counting. And so did the first guy on the comments underneath. He said, for the love of Jesus, can you cut back with the bird talk? And I thought, well, let me prove that Jesus loved the birds. So I started thinking about how I could, just anything can give me an idea that I think people will like. It's not that I like it so much as I think that people will be delighted with it. I want to entertain. I'm in a service business.
Yeah, and you've been touring and performing for how long now?
Well, I met Jim Stafford when I was 25, and I helped him with his show. So that was 5 years. You can count that or not. But then I started myself when I was 30, and now I'm 68. So that's 38 years on my own.
Yeah.
In a business that wants to throw you away in a year.
Yeah.
But if you don't have a sitcom or a talk show that they can cancel, they hardly ever cancel somebody being famous. So I thought, why ever give them a chance of me looking like I just got blown up and burned?
Fascinating.
Yeah.
That's really smart. Was that a strategic decision on your part?
I just don't like how, when you're really hot, then you're really cold. And I like just traveling around, being Gallagher, and meeting people. It takes 3 or 4 years to go around the United States and get to every place. So you come back every 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. Now, how long do you tour? How much out of the year? How long are you on the road?
Saturday night. Everybody's doing something Saturday night, and my life just goes. I don't think I ever had a Saturday night off. Okay. I have off Mondays and Tuesdays. So I'm probably going to work all the Saturday nights in a year.
All right, and you travel
any way I can.
Okay,
and I just get a plane. I'll buy my ticket at the last minute because I like to change my mind, and it's really more expensive if you buy a ticket and then don't take it. Yeah, and I have to argue with them about wanting it back. So I just don't get it till the very last minute.
Oh wow!
And then I rent a car.
Okay,
and I can get everywhere. And then I go to the Walmart and I get all the food because who wants to hit really good food? I can get cans for $49 and $59.
So you mentioned before when we were recording some of your poems, and they're really a lot of fun, that you kind of sequester yourself away and write for days? It's
the craziest thing. It's got to be insane. I get away from people to make something I can't wait to show to people. That's nuts. But I do need to get away, and I focus, and I use my love of the English language and my experience, and I'm either a teacher or a babysitter. storyteller to get people involved and give. A spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. If you have a message, make it funny or rhythmic, a song, a poem, somehow make it palatable.
How did you get started with all of this? I mean, what prompted you to want to become an entertainer and do it in the way you do?
You know, I'm a scientist and I was a chemist and I don't really believe in reincarnation, but there's no other explanation for the fact that as a chemist, I went to a nightclub and I saw an entertainer and I thought that I could work with him. And Jim Stafford, and he had a joke that he had taken from George Carlin, and it was, I'm a Presbyterian, we worship Frisbees, we believe when you die, your soul goes to a garage in Santa Monica. And he lived in Santa Monica, and that was funny in California.
Yeah.
But I thought that you should do something that pertains to the Frisbee. So I said to Jim, why don't you say that you're Presbyterian, you worship Frisbees, you believe when you die, your soul goes up on the roof and you can't get it down like a Frisbee, see?
Uh-huh.
And he said, do you want to go to my room and smoke dope? And I said, yes. And so I worked with him for 5 years, and we wrote songs that were hard to get on the radio. And then we had the first song about, now we were using Jerry Jeff Walker's Wildwood Weed, but we put jokes in it. The way Jim used it in his show, he had jokes. And then the Bellamy Brothers had the same producer.
Okay.
And they had a song called Spiders and Snakes, but the verses were different, and Jim liked the hook.
Okay.
So he rewrote the verses, but keeping I don't like spiders and snakes, and that ain't what it takes to love me. And that sold 2 million records at a time when a million seller was a career.
Wow.
Back then. I was on the Mike Douglas show when I was 25, and I lived off of that for 5 years until I started seriously again. People would say, that's Gallagher. He was on the Mike Douglas show. Oh, that's how you had to do it back then.
I remember
if you were on TV, you're a celebrity. I mean, kick back.
Mike Douglas and then Merv Griffin, and then...
He was a lovely man, and I actually paid my rent with the $250 checks I got from doing my Social Security. I don't know why I said that. My talk shows, because I could do, Dinah had a show, John Davidson. I could go to Canada, up there to Vancouver, and Alan Hamill had a show, and his producer was Alan Thicke.
Oh, wow.
And Alan Thicke had a really stupid quiz show up there. It was really dumb. Because I saw him when I went back to the room to relax at the hotel, and I turned the TV on. There he was doing some dumb Canadian quiz show. And that, of course, it wasn't where his dead end. He made but he had a son, that farts around with Miley.
Right.
I'm going to try this joke.
Okay.
Why does Miley Cyrus's tongue stick out so far from her mouth? It's trying to escape.
Oh, my. I always liked watching you because you had so many creative props, but they really just added to the story and the humor that you were creating.
I feel that you have to be a complete entertainer, and that props and visuals are another way to add dynamics to your show. But people just focus on what is different about you and then say that's what you do. I wasn't a prop comic. I was a proper comic. I was a complete entertainer. I would put dance numbers in and songs, anything for variety. It refreshes the mind. You can't just stand there telling one-liners for 2 hours. People can't handle that. There has to be dynamics. If you tell a story, that's a good idea, because that can take 5, 7, 8 minutes. You only need to do 6 of them in an hour, you see, and now you don't have to remember a whole hour of material. You just remember 6 stories. You see, that way, and then they don't think. The object is for you to forget the time went by so fast.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be diverted.
Right. You're a creative, I'm going to use the word genius, because I've really admired your work, and this is the stuff you shared with me today. There's just so much depth and thought in the use of the language in your poems. You had this hat that you used to do with the... You
want the story on that?
Could I hear that story?
Right,
because you made that thing, because it had all kinds of levers and pulleys.
Here's what's really going on. This is backstage, okay?
Yeah.
When I was working with Jim, I would think of funny guitars. I made him a guitar where the hole fell off. I closed over the hole, but I had a loop of string inside with a magnet, and I made a black piece of round black that looked like a hole.
Yeah.
And when you pulled the string on the back of the guitar, nobody could see you were doing it because it looked like you were just moving your hand down the neck of the guitar. The hole slid down to the bottom and then fell off. In a day and time of LSD, that was really something. The hole fell off that guitar. And I had another guitar that he played Flight of the Bumblebee on a 12-string, and a rose came out, and the bee, supposedly by the sound, went into the flower, and then it exploded, and we killed the bee. And we would actually get complaints about killing the bee, and there was no bee.
Yeah.
So anyway, I made him a guitar that had a tenant. He had rented it out to someone, small little thing that was living in the guitar. So when he was playing it in the evening at the nightclub, it was a little loud, and a light would go on in the middle of the hole. You would hear steps, and the door would open, and the light would bathe his face, and the voice would say, could you hold it down up there? We're trying to sleep. Geez, what kind of racket? If I knew this was this way, I wouldn't have moved in, And so they argue a couple of times, and then Jim gets all involved in playing Malagueña. Everybody knows, it's getting too loud. That little shit inside's going to get mad. And then he comes stomping up the stairs, and it killed in a nightclub, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
And a saw would come out the side of the guitar and saw along, and that got a huge laugh. Now, Jim didn't like it. Some of the biggest laughs in his show were my props, see? When I started my act, I asked Jim, can I take the jokes then that I put inside the guitar and put it in a hat?
Yeah.
And so that's what that is. That's really the guitar routine, but in even smaller than a guitar. I put it in a hat, and I added water.
Yeah, I remember the pipe
leaking. I added golf carts riding around the rim.
Yeah. And you built that
in my little room. That $135 a month, and a talk show paid $250. So when you become a millionaire in the same place where you were on unemployment, it really gives you scope for your life.
I'll bet.
And then when you have 4 heart attacks, you think that anybody that's talking about money is not involved with you. I mean, that's cute and you can understand it, but it's not relevant to a person who may be dead the next day. I mean, I wake up in a hospital and they tell me what happened.
Wow.
That's the way it works, probably for everybody. But I used to eat a lot of cholesterol without really knowing it. I loved 2 eggs over light on corned beef hash for breakfast. Yeah. And then for dinner, I liked a fried shrimp dinner.
Nice.
And that shellfish are just full of cholesterol. I'm lucky I didn't have a heart attack at 50. Maybe I did. Let me see. It was in 2000, and I was born in 46, so I was 54.
When you had your first heart attack?
Yeah, in 2000, and then I've had one as recently as 2 years ago. I had 2 heart attacks within a week.
Oh, my.
I know. I told my son, I'm not doing anything more that has stress in it. What do you want to do with your life? Oh, I want to live in this valley in Arizona that's really shishy and has psychic on all the buildings. And they see flying saucers. It's not 51, but it's similar. It has magnetism and magic. So we went there, but they didn't have any drugstores, and I couldn't fill my prescription, and maybe that's why I had a heart attack. I don't know.
Oh.
The doctors are never going to blame themselves.
No.
But
it's your heart, sir.
Well, the only medicine I missed was a blood thinner, and they had that in the van, the ambulance thing that picked me up, so I should have been ready immediately and done if it was just a blood thinner. But if they had to put another stent in, it seems to me, but you don't want to second guess heart surgeons. And think they don't
probably not a good idea.
Have scope. I've had 4 different ones. I had the guy who invented the stent, Dr. Schatz at the Green Hospital in La Jolla.
Okay.
Yeah. I was on his table one time, and I bet him that his product was defective and that my artery had closed back up again or was about to. And he said it only happens in 15%. And I said, well, if it's me, I'm dead. And I said, and I got plenty of money. I'll pay for the operation to look. And he says, all right, I'll tell you what. If it's clogged, I'll pay for the operation, but I really won't because I'll just make you part of my study. And so sure enough, it was clogged. I'm laying there and he says, well, you don't have to pay for the operation. Like an idiot. I'm glad, I'm glad. And right? Oh, that was stupid.
Right.
So anyway, he says, well, we got this little Roto-Rooter thing that we could just go in there, but you know what? I don't normally do this. I'm a researcher. And here I am on his table. I mean, really. Yeah. This was a little late to find that out.
So you mentioned something, you said something that's kind of interesting. You decided, I'm not doing anything that's stressful anymore.
Yeah, that guy died.
That Gallagher died?
Yeah, that strategy ultimately leads to a heart attack.
Yeah.
So I was just going to go, my son is more out there. He does tarot cards. He plays a sitar. He sells tea online for virtual currency. He doesn't want to touch the ground, I don't think.
Okay.
He's floating.
Whatever crumbles your cookie, right?
Yeah. Well, I raised him.
Yeah. So how do you go about that? How do you just say, you know what, I'm not going to worry about that?
Once you die 4 times, that's how you can act. You see everybody as... I can't really set up any long-term relationship. I can't do a movie. They can't insure me. They can't guarantee that I'm going to finish the movie. And so I'm really, you live day to day. If you're polite, I don't want to get people involved and then die on them.
Right.
So so I'm open. I tell them, I get these clogs and then I'm gone. But if you want to work real hard today, I'm ready.
Okay.
That's my attitude.
That's great. Have you read the book Essentialism?
No.
It's a book I read just recently, and it talks a lot about focusing on what's really, really important to you and getting rid of all kinds of other distractions on that take away.
Oprah says to follow your bliss.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's about the same thing. But I just like writing poems, and I'll write for both sides. I could probably, I can take both men or women. I can take both sides, communist, democratic. I can just write from any point of view. I like this. I should have been a lawyer, I think, but I wanted to be a scientist.
Really?
Yeah. I was the chief chemist of a Kaiser aluminum plant. We made nitric acid and then ammonium nitrate for the fertilizer business. We had pipes at high pressure and lots of ways to hurt yourself. And I finally did. I had a flask break and go through my hand, and it cut the tendons to my fingers, and they tied them back together again. But I thought everybody had a scar, and I thought, well, I better leave here. Because I'm eventually going to conk my head on. See, ammonia. You know how people run from ammonia because you can't get any air?
Right.
Yeah. That's what we dealt with, and totally ammonia.
Not a good place.
But when you're a boy and you're young, you want your own acid plant. In fact, when I got arrested for marijuana in 1967 or 66, they went to my lab thinking I'm making LSD in the lab. These guys. I was the only one on the plant premises that really knew anything about chemistry.
Oh, wow. That's funny. We have listeners from all different types of backgrounds and a lot of people are interested, might have one career, but they have this dream of becoming a voice actor and using their voice to perform different things and make money from it. Obviously, you've changed careers a long time ago, but for anybody who's exploring the creative arts, what would you say? What advice would you give them to promote the creative process?
You can't do none of that. Either they are a true talent and it just has to come out, or not. And then the business is very who you know. So that's not fair either. And so there's no way you can give advice about knowing somebody. Being a production assistant and knowing the producer when you know they need a voiceover or a stand-in or a stunt person and you volunteer and you're right there. You can't beat that. You're on the set, or lying. All the actors lie. They say they can shoot a bow and arrow and they can ride a horse and they know yoga. and because they might just take that part out of the the movie, and then you're still there. So your agent will tell them everything. Tell them you can do everything.
Interesting.
Yeah, these are the kind of advices I would give, and it's not wholesome and tidy.
Yeah.
And I would tell a comedian to just get jobs. Don't worry about the money. The more you're in front of people, the better you get if you pay attention. What you do is you keep what works, throw away what doesn't. After a few jobs, you're going to have a list of things that work good, and you're going to like them because you're going to want to make people laugh. You want to kill them. You have to hate the audience enough to want to control them, but love them enough to want them to be happy. It's very difficult, but you do need absolute control.
Control over the audience?
Of what they're thinking and how they're breathing. I listen to how their laugh goes, and then I step on it as it's going down. I don't want dead air. It's just like radio. Can't ever be quiet. Wow. So I judge how happy they are and how long their normal laughs are, so then I know when to start the setup of the next joke.
Okay. Interesting.
It's very different than being a poet.
Yeah. Now, you're touring right now and doing your show. Are you using any of the poems in your show?
No, they move too slow for a nightclub audience that's drinking. You have to hit them.
Yeah.
I'm ruthless. I hit them on the way down, and I kick them while they're laying down. I'm a dirty fighter, and they love it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and
beat them up. Did you kill him? Yeah, I killed him.
No, you said that Gallagher died. How do you still do these shows?
Well, it's
being
awkward still being on the earth. I went and I saw my son, and I was of use to him. And then I need to go away and let him put the pieces together. I went and visited my daughter. She's got 2 grandchildren for me, and I played with them until I went nuts. And now I just want to get away, you see. And so I'm giving them a break from me.
Yeah.
My son likes to see me, but not all the time.
Yeah.
You can't be there all the time. So I guess I'm just like a ghost, a phantom. I'm a little make people uncomfortable because I kind of passé, kind of over with, but I'm still alive and I'm looming around. But you know what? If you're drinking and you want to have a rowdy time, I'm the guy. I learned how to do this. Dave Letterman, Jay Leno, they didn't do that. They wanted to have a talk show and learn how to say you modeled before you got into acting. And what was that like working for that director? And you have a story about your pet, don't you? I couldn't do that. I cannot handle it. I didn't like it when George Carlin would kiss the guest when he was the host of The Tonight Show. That's what he was against, all that pretense and faking stuff. To me, so anyway,
this has been a lot of fun.
If I was not me, I would go to my show.
Yeah.
If I heard, Gallagher still wasn't smacking, because I do a good show. I mean, I don't, we don't have a boring time and then we smash food. We have a lot of fun being truthful and inappropriate.
Well, that's wonderful.
And drinking while we're drinking. It's fun. It's rowdy. I work some places where a train goes by. I mean, I'm telling you, I've got competition. I've got to be strong.
Sure. Yeah.
Kansas City, the club is down in the hole where the train comes through by the river, and the conductor waves to me. In fact, I just worked in Reno, and I was next to the train tracks too. There's 2 places. 4 trains came by during my hour-and-a-half set. 4 trains.
Wow.
Just try to keep everybody's attention and just ignore the train.
Wow, that's a challenge.
Sometimes at state fairs, the Ferris wheel has music.
Yeah.
Or the kids are yelling what they told you not to say. Because they're upside down or scared.
Right. Yeah. Don't keep it clean. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to keep it clean, and they're yelling stuff from the Ferris wheel.
How ironic.
That's what I go for. I go for irony or inconsistencies of behavior or fake. If you pretend to be one thing and you're not.
And there's plenty of material, isn't there?
Yeah. It gets more all the time. This world's never been dumber than it is, and nobody knows anything. We don't know. It's all an area of gray. No wonder Shades of Gray was a popular book. Everything is a shade of gray. It's a half of this and a half of that. I call it a spoon fork. You know, at Kentucky Fried Chicken, it's kind of a spoon and kind of a fork, but it's really not a good fork. And it's not a good spoon because it won't ladle soup. And so that's basically what people are driving if they have a car, truck. If they have something with a back seat, but it's a truck, you just took up a lot of the room. You needed to carry a sheet of plywood in the back.
Right.
To me, if you can't pick up a 4x8 sheet of plywood, you don't have a truck.
Right.
You see?
Yeah.
And so that's a spoon fork.
Yeah.
You see, you finally have to make a commitment. This shades of gray and things in the middle don't always work. You can't qualify yourself into a battle. You see, you have to have a final plan, you know. But America, we like a nice guy to be our general, like Eisenhower, and not Patton. Patton was effective. Patton would have won.
Yeah.
Patton would have beat him up. You know, we have to have a coalition and a politician, and that's how we do things in America. It's half of this, and we kind of do some of the infrastructure and then quit, and some of this job and then quit, and you know, it's what is it when you have a catastrophe and then you fix it? That's how we operate. We never fix something before anything happens.
It's reactive.
We all crisis management, something like this. You know, it has to happen once and then we fix it, right?
Maybe. Maybe we fix it.
Well, we try.
Yeah, we try.
Yeah.
Wow, this is a lot of fun, and it's been a lot of fun. This is not how I expected to spend my day today. I figured I would come in, but then the opportunity presented itself to meet you and talk to you and record you with your poems and stuff. And
that was my opportunity, too, because I could die in a half an hour, and you have a nice little compendium of my poems here that you could work with. And you'd call my daughter, and the kids would be screaming, and you'd say,
I have your dad's stuff.
I've got some poems that he did.
And I would honor that. Did you have anything else you want to add?
Oh, I can. You know, I just talk. I can go on for hours. I do a 2-hour show because I don't shut up.
Okay. Well, Gallagher, thank you very much for your time. It's been an honor and a lot of fun.
All right. I hope you were listening closely.
I was. It's one of those things. I'll go back and listen to it again, and I know I'll hear a whole new thing.
I only tell the truth, and that's why I create enemies and problems. People don't want to hear the truth. It's not politically correct. Thank you.
No, thank you. Well, that was interesting, wasn't it? Before the interview, I promised you that we were going to play one of his poems that he's referred to in the first part of our conversation there. And so here is that poem on French and English with Gallagher. I'm recording now because I just wanted to get your levels and everything.
Oh, I have a really good one on French. Let's just do this.
Let's do that one.
The start off. You're going to really love this one.
Anytime you're ready.
You can't speak the King's English without Francais. You may begin Anglo, but then you must segue to a foreign tongue with tremor caché. This is a war of words, then en garde et touché. You can't get a job without a resume. You can't get married without a fiancé. Trousseau, corsage, boutonniere, bouquet, English, sogos. French, so enchanté. When you shop a petite boutique salon, order hors d'oeuvres, a soupe de jour coûtant. For your entrée, monsieur will have filet mignon. Whatever English was is now gone. Français remain the champion of everything they say at the restaurant. Sacre bleu, if I could talk it to Napoleon, I would say, we won, and never fire once a cannon. I have more, but okay. In your mind, it's Britain, but in your mouth, it's France. There's no English word written for the concept nonchalance. The English use so little bit vowels, but a lot of consonants, so there's so little finesse and not 1 ounce of nuance. Come, cross the channel, feel the ambiance. We will sell you smells, which we call essence. You can promenade couture with the debutantes, or you can bring your wife. We have everything she wants. It's the city of lights, so it's like a mirage, a silhouette, a masquerade. What fun, a charade! We dance upon our toes, and we know that's a little odd. But all roads, they may lead to Vatican Rome, but Paris is where the influential call home. You know who has a pied-à-terre there? God. Our niche is more than a quiche. We sent a Statue of Liberty and the concept laissez-faire, so all entrepreneurs in your country can become a millionaire. But remember, you're just a nouveau riche, and we're bourgeois aristocracy. Now, you ride our carousel, our Ferris wheel, our limousine. Already you live in our milieu under our regime. Now, we will teach you how to say only half of what you mean. This is not your mistress, it's your protégée, Maxine. This is not to say Anglais is not a language per se, but what has had its day is now passé, at least antique, at most cliché. The English don't have to say they have too much on their plate. The world can see they've been busy eating when they turn to walk away. Why do English fry when look how slim you get when you just saute? Life for me cannot be sans my maitre d' or my valet, my escalade croissants, and of course my caramel lattes. The French signs, they are everywhere. Liquor, souvenir, buffet. They make every avenue the Champs-Élysées. Every date a rendezvous with carte blanche to be risqué. Femme fatales in lingerie on the Marquis Cabaret. Ooh la la, voila. Is not sex everyone's forte? So get out of your closet and get into an armoire. I'll meet you at the premiere of a film noir. Under the grand chandelier, we will 10 times au revoir. Then a little later, in my discreet boudoir, I will debut the new moves in my avant-garde repertoire. But it won't say we went all the way in my memoir, 'cause you know you're English and so bizarre, and your land is a cul-de-sac, so you can only go so far.
Clever, huh? I mean, really brilliant. He set himself away. He retreated. He squirreled himself away in a hotel room and wrote that one and several others that he shared with me. That's it for this episode of the podcast, and I will talk to you in episode 41. Thanks for listening. Take care.
Our program originates in the Boston studios. We hope you'll join us again. Until then, we bid you au revoir, keep your chin up, and the best of luck.
Well, that's it for this episode of the VoiceOver Marketing Podcast. If you like this podcast, please subscribe to it at voiceovermarketingpodcast.com so you'll get notices of new episodes, and please share it with your friends and colleagues in the voiceover world. Also, it would be a huge help if you'd like this podcast and rate it on iTunes to help keep it near the top of the list. Feel free to share your comments and questions about this episode and future topics you'd like discussed at voiceovermarketingpodcast.com. And if you'd like more information on one-on-one coaching where we focus on growing your business, feel free to drop me a line at my cyber assistant's email address at mike@johnmelly.com. Thanks for listening. Now go out there and share your voice with the world.